So about my friends, I hope this finds you well. So here we are, Gaudete Sunday, or Advent 3. Now, Gaudete is the Latin word for rejoice. And I know Advent can be traditionally focused more on waiting, preparation, and of course repentance. Gaudete Sunday invites us to lift our hearts in joy, hence the very snazzy pink stole. It is absolutely my favourite stole. It was a gift from my training incumbent or training supervisor for our first Christmas together, and it is absolutely my favourite one. I love this colour. I mean, I know, a lot of people, they go, it's rose, because they can't handle the fact that we get to wear pink, I think. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about fragile masculinity. I'm just going to say, I like this colour. It's one of my favourites. This is my favourite stole. So I thought I'd wear it today for you guys. But on Gaudete Sunday, we reflect on the deep joy that is available to us as we prepare for the coming of Christmas and, of course, the arrival of Jesus. Now, what does it mean to rejoice, especially in a world that often feels heavy with sorrow, a world that is mired in struggles and anxieties? How can we be joyful when the pressures of life seem to just pull us in every single different direction? It's a question that's also very relevant to us in the here and now. Each of us who have gathered here today to watch this or to listen to this will be facing our own stresses. We'll have our own issues. And yet today, Gaudete Sunday, we are invited to find joy. And St. Paul, in the readings for today, offers some wisdom on this, especially during the season of Advent. You see Paul's letter to the Phillipians, which of course will be in the description as always, friends. He invites us to rejoice in the Lord, not just sometimes, not just when things are going right, but always. Every single day now. I don't know about you, but I think that maybe sounds a little hard, doesn't it? But think about it. Think about it. How many things do we do every single day without thinking about it? How we clean our teeth. We shower. Some of us head to work. We open our Advent calendars in Advent, of course. There are things we do every single day. And as I often tell some of the school kids I go and do assemblies for, if you can do just one prayer a day, you're doing much better than 95% of the planet. If we can find one thing to thank God for every single day, friends, we're already doing better than most. It seems a little easier now, doesn't it, to find those things every day? I mean, the things, it could be something very simple, like my joy today is I get to wear this. It could be your joy today was that you found a friend on Facebook who you haven't spoken to for a few years. It could be you found your Thanos lamp in the background and it works. Joy can be anything. Anything, even something simply as small as you were in a rush to get somewhere and the light stayed green. That could do it. That could be joy. So how can we cultivate this joy, and what does it look like in our lives? Well, Paul, in his letter to the Philippians, he invites us to rejoice in the Lord always. And I know that may seem difficult, especially when life is hard, like we've just talked about. The run-up to Christmas is especially stressful. Oh, gosh, it is. For all of us, every single one of us, nobody has an easy run to Christmas. I was talking the other day to my 4-year-old, and he was explaining just how tired he is because of all the constant rehearsals they had to do for their Christmas concert at his primary school, and of all the different lessons he's had to do. And he looked at me and went, I need a break. And I thought, you know what, mate? Felt. Absolutely. To quote my eldest, felt. It was there. Each of us, not one of us, is immune to the stresses of this time of year. And then, of course, if we couple that with exactly how most of us are feeling in general in 2024, not any of us has an easy ride anymore. And so Paul is writing these words from prison. And despite having the reputation as being a bit of a grumpy old sod on the quiet, Paul's letter to the Philippians is actually really full of joy and encouragement. As I say, friends, it's in the description. Go read it. It's brilliant. How could he, bound in chains, his liberty gone, probably getting his ass whipped round the clock by the guards, how could he speak so confidently and so eloquently about rejoicing? Because Paul's invitation is not to rejoice in our circumstances. Paul's invitation is not to rejoice in the fleeting things of this world, the things that have passed, the things that will indeed decay and end. He doesn't say, rejoice in your success, rejoice in your career, rejoice in your wealth, rejoice in your comfort. He doesn't even say, rejoice in your health. What he says is rejoice in the Lord, in the unshakable, everlasting truth that God's love is for you and for me. The joy that Paul speaks of is a joy that comes from the very deep assurance right here in the middle of our hearts that no matter what happens, God is with us. Remember those words from in the week, Jeremiah, I think it was Wednesday's reading, when God says, do not be afraid, for I am with you. The joy that Paul is talking about is knowing, deep down in here, knowing that whatever we face, the Lord is stood right beside us, arm on our shoulder saying, come on, you got this. And the joy, it's not dependent on what's happening around us. The joy is not dependent on our deeds or on our actions, but the joy comes from the promise of God. We anticipate the coming of Christ at Christmas. We wait for his return in glory in the here and now also. And the joy that Paul implores us to feel, it's not a denial of suffering. We don't stick our heads in the sands and pretend it ain't terrible out there. We don't say, oh, it's the cries of the suffering and hungry, la, 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 I can't hear you, la, la, la. We don't do that. What we do is we look it dead in the eye. We look the problems. We look the state of the world out there. We look poverty, loneliness, mental health. We look all of the things that are assailing us in the everyday, in the here and now. We look them dead in the eye. And we remember that God's ultimate purpose for our lives is not to be undone by these things. That God's ultimate purpose for our lives are to love, to live in him, to carry the peace and the joy that only God can bring. Paul continues, he goes on, he says, let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Now, that word, reasonableness, seems a bit, I don't know, it's not quite right, is it? The reasonableness of the Lord. Well, okay. But if we look at some of the translations that the text has gone through over the decades, generations since it was discovered, it's actually more on the lines of gentleness or graciousness. So essentially what Paul is saying is, in the middle of our struggles, in the middle of our fights, when things out there weigh down on us and push us down, he's urging us to display a more Christ-like demeanour. Now, of course, we know what that means. It means to carry ourselves with calmness, with kindness, with peace. Even when people around us are driving us nuts, even when stress increases and we haven't got a moment to just sit down and be, and it seems like at any moment we're just like coiled up springs that could just explode and tear the head off someone. Paul urges us, keep calmness, keep kindness, keep peace in here. In the busy and very often contentious world around us, it can be so easy to become anxious, irritable, harsh, to operate from a place of fear. Absolutely. I see it every day. Absolutely. But when we truly embrace the way of living that God wants us to have, when we embrace the Lord, when we rest in his peace, it transforms us. It transforms how we interact with others. It transforms how we handle the stresses of life. It points to the fact that while the world may indeed be full of chaos, we are grounded in this peace and the Spirit and the presence of Christ. Paul then offers us a practical pointer. He says, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer, let your requests be made known to God. Anxiety is a very real thing. It's a very heavy burden that so many of us carry. It's out there. There are no tablets to treat it. It's terrible. One of my nearest and dearest is absolutely afflicted by it. Whether the anxieties come about our health, whether the anxieties come about our relationships, our futures, prayer is the act of surrendering our worries to God. Now, I'm not trite enough to say, anxious, pray, it'll all go away. What I'm saying, friends, is that if we enter into that conversation with our Creator, that is prayer, if we trust that He's both able and willing to carry these anxieties, these worries for us, if we're able to pray in thanksgiving, to offer these things to God and to say thank you for Him to take them, if we remember that God has always been faithful to us in the past and that He will continue to be faithful, if in our anxious moments we remember that prayer is not just a way to hand God a laundry list. Remember, He's not an intergalactic concierge. If we remember that prayer is a way to draw nearer to our God, to draw nearer to the peace that He so freely offers, to remember that He's the source of everything we need, then by all means, friends, maybe, just maybe, that joy and that peace will help lift the weight of those anxieties a little bit. And finally, Paul promises that if we bring our anxieties to God in prayer, he says to us, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. This peace is not the absence of conflict, not at all. It's not even the absence of difficulty. Remember, those times are going to come. We're told that. Jesus never says you won't be tested. He never says to us, you know what, the bad times, they'll never come. No, He doesn't. What Jesus says is, when the bad times come, I'm stood right next to you. And so if we hand these things to God, we get that deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing that God is in control. And it surpasses our understanding because, of course, it doesn't make sense. In worldly terms, how can we have peace when there is so much chaos out there? Absolutely. I completely agree with that. The question then we have to ask is, does the peace of God not transcend our human logic? The peace that comes from trusting in the presence and promises of God doesn't make us bulletproof, but it gives us strength. It gives us a way to walk forward. And in the days ahead, as we start to approach Christmas, very likely we will face challenges. We'll face very busy schedules, some of us. We'll face family tensions. We'll face even moments of loneliness and disappointment. But in all things, we are invited to bring our burdens to God, to pray. And my brothers and sisters, this is important. Okay, please listen to this bit. If it's bad this year, if Christmas is a time of loneliness, if Christmas is a time of desolation for you, reach out. I am serious. Reach out. Reach out to God. Reach out to those around you. Family, friends, loved ones, even your local parish priest, wherever you are. If you don't have access to any of that, there is an email address either side of this video. Please reach out. I may not be able to come to you, but at the very least we can talk and you will not be alone. Please reach out. And so, my friends, as we bring this into land, on this Gaudete Sunday, as we rejoice in the Lord, let's remember that our joy is not based on our own circumstances. It's not based on who we are or what we do or how much money we have or our career or our job title or how many letters we have after our names. It's not meant in any of that. What it's based on is the unshakable truth, oh so simply put, that God is always with us, even when we feel like we are alone against the chaos. The Lord stands beside us. Remember, like he said to Jeremiah, do not be afraid. I will deliver you. And this promise echoes through the ages, and it stands with us even now. Remember, like Jesus said to us, for I am with you until the end of the age. And so, my friends, that brings us to the end of today's video. I love this thing. It is amazing. Excuse me, still fighting a bit of a cough, as you can hear. However, like I said, the email address, reach out, anything you need, questions, comments, anything, let me know. If you've got a birthday coming up, let me know. I'll wish you happy birthday. I'll draw the line at singing. I ain't singing. I always say, whenever I do a funeral or anything like that, and families want hymns, I always say, listen, bring singers, because the Lord gave me a lot of gifts. He gives all of us a lot of gifts. He did not give me the gift of song. I say this having 2 carol services coming up. Anyway, my friends, have a wonderful and blessed Gaudete Sunday. Have a wonderful and blessed week as you're coming up to it now. And remember, as the stresses of Christmas build, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, okay? I'm serious. I see it all the time. There are pictures on Facebook all the time of trees piled high with presents. You don't need that. I dislike doing it because I dislike their music entirely, but the Beatles were right. All you need is love. My friends, this time of year, I know things can be pants. I can't swear at YouTube. I know this time of year can be pants for some. I promise you, you do not have to walk alone. Okay, you don't. Don't be a stranger. Reach out. Remember, you are loved by God. You were worth dying for as far as Jesus cared. And I'm here. And I love you too. God bless you, my friends. And take care.